Suleiman,
Saduddin.
how was your week, man?
How was my week? My week was good. I watched a very interesting film yesterday called Molly's Game on Netflix. It was about this woman who became I guess she became not just a poker expert, but she would organize poker games for the richest people in society. And then one thing that stood out from the movie was when she was younger, her dad, who was like a psychology professor and someone that was extremely kind of very strict on her and like her development, basically would ask her 3 questions on her birthday every single year. And I was like, that's such an interesting idea. And I really wish that someone asked me 3 questions every year since I was 10, just to see how my opinions change. So like, if I ever have kids one day, God willing, I'm going to plan to do that if possible. I think it's a really sick idea. But yeah, man, what about you? How you been? How's your week?
My week's been very unproductive, to be honest, man. Yesterday I watched The Incredibles for like the 50th time. So that gives you a little glimpse into how unproductive my week was. All I have to do really is, like, I've been telling myself I have to watch this like 30-minute lecture, for my course. But every time I'm like, I'll just do it tomorrow, man. I'll just wake up. Do you know that thing of like, I'll wake up tomorrow really early and do it and get out of the way and then whatever. So I've been doing a lot of that this past week. I finally managed to do it this morning, before we recorded. So that's a little victory before we start this. But other than that, man, my week's been mad unproductive, bro. Like, yesterday I went Five Guys, bro. Five Guys fries are so dank. Oh my god,
they're elite
they're
fries.
so banging. Yeah, I literally went there. Yeah, you know Five Guys is opposite a bench. You know the Market Square. There's a bench.
Yeah.
So I went there, and I was like, fam, I'm just gonna chill on the bench and eat these fries, bro. Because if I go home, they'll get cold. I was just like, let me just chill on the bench and eat these fries.
Bro, you know the sick thing about Five Guys is that they don't play games when they give you their portions. They will give you bare, even if you buy small ones, they just go.
But you know what it is? They charge you for that.
Yeah, it's expensive.
They charge you for that. Like,
relative to
bro,
other
where'd you
places.
pay £4 for chips?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? They charge you £4 for fries and they just fill up the bag, innit?
Yeah.
Like, they're koalas you, bro.
I remember reading that the CEO, his principle is that you should always give the customer more than what they expect. So they always fill up the bag, and it makes you feel like it reminds me of that thing of like when you go to the chicken shop and you get extra wing in your box. It's like you feel like there's a relationship developing between you and the boss man, but really he's doing that to everyone, innit? But it's kind of like that kind of thing.
It doesn't cost them much. It's like free promo.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got a loyal customer that you've just gained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like Ali, how was your week, man?
Good, man. Alhamdulillah. It's been a productive week, I'd say. Relatively productive, because when you have more like control over what you can do, obviously we just finished term, so I guess my day-to-day tasks are not being dictated by other people. Do you know what I'm saying? If I have supervision tomorrow, I know I'm gonna have to do certain things, whereas this week it's sort of in my hands. And so it's good that I've sort of been able to manage my time and stuff. Generally, man, I was laughing about what you said, watching Incredibles for the 50th time. Like, what is it about us that makes us want to watch things more than once? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Friends, bro. Like I told you, man, I can watch that like a million times. I've watched it so many times, man. Like these days, I'll be doing a task like I don't need to think about. Like, for example, let's say I'm folding my clothes in it or hanging them up and stuff, and I just put Friends in the background just because you know what, like, it's giving me fills the silence.
Us lot were talking about that the idea of like watching a horror movie on your phone while you're in bed. Like, you gotta be a sociopath to do that, because fam, that's like you're putting yourself through that for
no reason,
out of choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And just on your ones. So I feel like it's like the opposite of that.
Your ones.
You're trying to feel scared.
Yeah, man. I'd go as far as saying watching a horror movie is just like you have to be a sociopath anyways. Because what's the point, bro? Like, for me personally, innit? You get me? I'll be honest with you, bro. I'm the pickiest guy to watch a movie with. I'm a very picky guy. Like, it'll take a long time for us to like sit and pick a movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Because horror movies, I'll be like, bro, like, what's the point? Action movies, I'll be like to you, bro, like, do you get it? If you miss one like sentence in the whole plot, you're gonna forget that my man's twisted in the army, innit? You're gonna forget that he's not in the army properly, and like he's basically colluding against someone. Like, this requires too much attention, and the more time I'll just end up saying, you know what, man, let's just watch Friends. Because, bro, I don't need to focus, man. I know it off by heart, man. I know it off by heart, bro. I know Ross is gonna do this. Do you get me? I know Rachel's gonna get pregnant and that, bro. Don't worry, innit? Ross's baby, innit? But these times they're trying to guess. I know the answers, man.
Bro, you know what? Why I find what you just said really interesting? Because I was thinking the other day, for a lot of things we do, especially at uni, we only do it once. So like we will only watch a lecture once. We will only read a page once. We might say to ourselves, cool, in the summer I'm going to go back over this. I'm going to consolidate it. But more time we only do things once, right? and it's based on that one experience whether or not you're going to do it again. Like, even when you meet someone for the first time, it's based on that initial interaction whether or not you're going to shout them to link them again. And it's the same with a film. Like, there's so many films, I bet, that I wasn't focused on, which meant I didn't really appreciate the film, which meant I never watched it again. Do you know what I mean? So it's... I guess the first question we like to ask our guests is, like, what is one of your earliest memories?
My earliest memory, one of my most fond memories of being a child is probably just being in school, being in primary school. Generally, like, I was quite loud, I was quite outgoing. I really like playing sports. That's like my main memory. Like, do you get me? Weather like this, like it's very sunny, and you're just in the primary school polo thing. Your jumper's somewhere on the field. More time it's getting lost. It's getting lost, or you're using it as a goal. You're arguing, bro. Man, what's the left post? Yeah. And that's my earliest memory, honestly. Just coming into class like proper sweaty, bro. After you've kicked ball for like an hour. That's my earliest memory, just being in primary school, really.
Did you either of you ever play this game, Invisible Football? Like, there wasn't a football, but you just pretend there's a football.
Nah,
that's a bit tapped.
That's a bit tapped, bro.
that's a bit mad.
What, Invisible Football? So what did it like?
So like, I pass the ball to you. You have to try it, like, pretend to control it.
Oh yeah,
and how many?
Like, that's like a little bit of banter between you and one other person.
Yeah, we did it for real. Like, there wasn't a football, so we're like, all right, let's just do Invisible.
Like,
Football.
on banter, you give me, you're walking to lesson, you be like, you get me, cool, but to actually sit down and
Wait,
or like stand up play.
Bro, proper, like, basically what would happen is, let's say we have a football, you get kicked over. We use a tennis ball. Yeah. It gets kicked over.
Oh.
It's like, what do we do now? Let's just play
Invisible football, bro. Yeah, that's tap. Because, okay, let's say there's like, what, 5 aside, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you've passed the ball to me. What's stopping my man from doing kick-outs?
He said someone said they scored and they didn't even
literally, bro. Now, these times, the keeper just made a save, G. I didn't even take a shot. Like, I don't know what's going on, bro. Nah, man. But you have to be proper young, innit? Yeah. That's when your imagination is like wild enough to get me imagining it.
I remember playing this one game called the David Villa game with my friend, just because it was popping. You know when David Villa was popping in the World Cup? He's putting them bare goals for Spain. Yeah, that was those good times. What would you say was your biggest struggle during your time at school?
Struggle?
Yeah.
My biggest struggle probably would have been more, using school in the way that it was intended to be used. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm an only child, so when I go home, there isn't that element of fun. Do you know what I'm saying? My dad's usually busy, and at the time I lived with my stepmom, and sometimes there'd be problems at home, or generally, like, I would be grounded, bro. I was grounded for a lot of time of high school. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't have my phone. I didn't have like my PlayStation or whatever. So a lot of the time, I just like school was my source of fun. And so when I go to school, after being at home for a long time and you're just basically on your own, not much to do. When you step into lesson, you're not really trying to focus and sit down and write. You're more trying to speak to your friends you haven't seen since yesterday. Do you know what I'm saying? That would have been my main struggle. And it was only until sort of I matured a little bit more and I sort of understood a bit more who I wanted to be, then I started to appreciate, like, do you know what I'm saying, what the purpose of school was and how detrimental this can be in the long run and generally just being more patient. It takes a bit of patience, do you know what I'm saying?
When you say you understood more who you wanted to be, what was the source of that understanding or sources?
I think that's a very good question. I think as weird as it might sound, I'd say to some extent it's meeting people that I didn't want to be like. Do you know what I'm saying? When you grow up in a certain environment, if I grew up in a certain working class environment, you start to meet people and you start to eventually, because if you think about it, by the time I reach year 11, people that I previously older than me, they start to grow up and I start to see what they were doing after school, or like as in after they had finished school. And a lot of them, you start to hear about their stories and stuff. And you're like, okay, so realistically, if I take the same path as this guy, I'm going to end up there. So I might as well change and try to be my own little different person. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I understood more who I wanted to be through understanding who I didn't want to be like, and the kind of things that person would do, sort of just that shaped my identity. So sort of thinking in this position, like, what would X person do? What would the kind of person that's going to be rich in the future do in this situation? What would the kind of person that's like, wants to be relatively religious in the future want to do in the situation? And so that start to guide my decisions more. On that,
let's go a bit deeper in it. So like, what kind of mistakes or missteps did you not want to repeat, or like did you see around you that you just knew that you like, I'm not trying to do that, basically?
I think my answer to this sort of links to one of the questions you guys were discussing in a previous episode, which was that is education a way out? And to a large extent, if you do see education as a way out, then you don't want to mess up that stage of education, because it's almost like it's like steps. If you don't take the first few steps, you can't take the later steps. Like if you can't get a job if you haven't done the first few steps, like doing maybe getting the GCSEs and stuff, like it's more difficult. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or a certain type of job, I'd say. But so I didn't want to sort of leave it too late. I don't want to leave it too late to say, you know what, let me fix up now. I don't want to say, you know what, like, I had my fun, now I'm going to fix up, because that's not really how it works. At some point, there's going to be sort of a point of no return. And that's the main mistake I didn't want to make. Like, I didn't want to be like, you know what, yeah, man, I've matured now, but it's too late. Do you know what I'm saying? I saw that people struggled if they didn't attain certain educational qualifications, and that's not necessarily a reflection of the person themselves a lot of the time. And so I knew throughout the whole time of growing up, like, my teachers always told my parents, yeah, he's got a lot of potential. I was always in like top sets for all my subjects, whether that's in primary school or high school. But then that didn't mean anything if I didn't actually get the grades. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I can finish year 11, yeah, and I won't get the grades or whatever.
These times you're in the interview, but like, I was in top set though. You know what I mean? Like,
literally, bro. They're saying like, why did you get like a C in this subject? Yeah. I'll say, bruv, mum's I was in top set. Wallah, and I used to put my hand up every lesson, bruv.
Trust me. Like, trust me. My mock exam was mad, bro. Like,
yeah, like my mock exam. Ask the teacher, bruv. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for real though, like, get me. Like, you can have all the potential in the world, but if you don't actually come to like sort of tangible results, then it's not really gonna mean anything. And I think that's the main mistake that I wanted to avoid. Although that's a very practical answer, that is the main mistake I wanted to avoid, because essentially you want to keep your options as open as possible at that age. If you're 15 and 16, you don't want to limit your options, and by not doing certain things, you are going to inevitably limit your options a lot.
How far do you still think in that way in terms of understanding who you are or understanding who you don't want to be today?
Still thinking that way. I think coming to university has helped shape who I think I want to be much more. A part of that is because we're at the University of Cambridge. There's a lot of inspirational people around us, but also simply because I've grown up in that time and I've met different people and I've been around different environments. And I think generally that's the beautiful thing about life, is that the more you go through experiences, the more hardship you go through, the more success and failure you go through, the more you learn about yourself and others around you. And that generally shapes your understanding of the world and sort of how you want to fit into the world. I think so. It's inevitable that since year 11 or since I was like 16, 15, I'm now 20, like that my vision of who I want to be has changed. And that's changed as a result of simply people I've met. Like, I could say that because I've met certain people at university, I've said, you know what, like, it could be little things. I'm not talking bigger picture, like, oh, this guy's trying to aim for this in the future, let me try to be like him. Like, it's not like, it's like, for example, I like the way that this person really thinks before they speak. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, you know what, that's a good characteristic I think could be beneficial in life. I think this person doesn't swear, for example. It's small things, you know, and then they just generally shape a character. But yeah, I would say that it's changed since I was in year 11. I definitely think, yeah.
What's the most recent thing that comes to mind, would you say?
That's helped shape who I want to be.
Yeah, you mentioned like small things.
Most recent thing that's come to mind, I think it would be well, the most recent / significant thing is going back to ends. Like when obviously, because last year, like March, we got sent back home from Cambridge, and that meant I was in London after being in Cambridge since October. And I think when I first came to Cambridge, I made an active effort to sort of like maybe change myself, like to an extent, maybe fit a certain type of bill, like, or maybe put like my past personality behind me and say, you know what, like now that I'm in Cambridge, it's important that I'm like this. Do you know what I'm saying? It's important that I'm well spoken. It's important that I don't dress like I'm from a certain area. Like, I'm serious, bro. And, you know, before I came to Cambridge, I went shopping, yeah. Bro, I'm buying shirts and that. Like, bro, I'm buying
Zara, H&M, everything.
Bro, I'm buying shirts and that. Like, yeah, like, I still have the shirts. Yeah, like these times now.
What kind of shirts?
Like, just normal shirts. Like, nothing too formal.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
at the same time, I'm not going to go buy something like that's going to make me look like I'm from the hood too much. You know what I'm saying? And that's not because I'm embarrassed of that. But I just don't want to. Do you know what I'm saying? I want to appear a certain way. Like, I want them to look at me in Cambridge. Like, at the time, I'm thinking, this is like my past mentality. Like, at the time, I want them to look at me and think, yeah, this guy's educated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want them to look at me and think, well, this guy's from the hood, innit? Especially because the way that I speak, the way that I look doesn't help me, innit? Do you know what I'm saying? In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't help me. Do you know what I'm saying? So let me come here and wear a shirt and that. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And then certain types of, like, less like, informal shoes and stuff. But what was the question again?
Most recent, was it the
Most
most
recent, yeah, man. So if I've come to Cambridge with this sort of with this idea of changing myself, it got tiring. Do you know what I'm saying? It got tiring. So I've come back to London, and I was sort of eager to just, you know what, like chill with my old friends, just do the things that I did before I came to Cambridge. You know what I'm saying? Like just be with my old friends and just be normal about things, because I felt like for a long time it was just, you know what, study, speak to people, and sort of like at no point was I just being myself. At no point was I just like, you get me, normal, just being normal about things. And I feel like it's it's not nerve wracking. I say it's quite stressful not being yourself every day. Do you know what I'm saying? Innit? Like if you have to wake up in the morning, go to a supervision, you're not really being yourself. Then you have to go have lunch with people that don't really know you properly, and then you're not really being yourself. It's all stressful. Like at no point are you just being yourself and like sort of representing who you are, where you're from and stuff. And so I went back to ends, and then generally it reminded me of people that I don't want to be like. Like when you go back to ends, yeah, it's like, okay, like I've seen differences now, because I've been to Cambridge. I've seen how people think. I've seen what people value. And then I've come back to ends, and I've seen the way that people think and what people are on every day, like what are their day-to-day tasks and sort of what their like sort of future ambitions are. And I've said, you know what, like it's reminded me that, you know what, like, nah, I should go back to Cambridge, and I should like make use of this opportunity, because realistically, it is a fantastic opportunity. Like I shouldn't see it that way. Do you know what I'm saying? I shouldn't see it in the way that it's restricting me from being who I am. I should just go there, be who I am, and make use of the opportunity, because it was me who got into that anyways. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't have to fake it. So yeah, man, there's a bit of a very long answer to your question, but
you know what, you've set up a bit of a diametric, or like, I don't know what the exact word is, but like you've kind of a binary basically between Cambridge and the ends, right? Where like people in the ends have certain values or certain day-to-day habits that you don't really relate with anymore, and then people in Cambridge, some people have certain values and day-to-day activities that you do want to strive towards. Would you consider it to be as strict as that? Like, is that the binary that you currently kind of that you sit in basically right now?
I think it's a very good question. It was never a case of like, oh, should I have the day-to-day task of someone from ends and have their values, or should I have the values and day-to-day task of someone in Cambridge? That's not really how I'm thinking about it. It's more that I don't fit into either.
Okay.
Sort of the typical person, of course, like, I'm not making generalizations in it, because Cambridge and ends will have a variety of different people. But I'm talking maybe like certain people that I know, or certain people within my network in both places, or certain people that like the typical person, the typical Cambridge student, or what you'd expect of them. Someone who's quite productive, someone who's generally sort of very like values education a lot, who's able to spend a lot of time studying and stuff. Sometimes I can find that difficult, because it's like I don't find the motivation. But at the same time, I don't find the motivation, or that I don't like resonate with the kind of day-to-day activities or the values of people in ends. And so it's like you feel like you don't fit in anywhere, because in Cambridge I'm not up to it, and in ends I'm not up to it either. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
that's really interesting.
Bro,
you know what? Yeah, there's one story I want you to talk about. Yeah, because me and Saturday know this story. Your Cambridge interview. Please, just quickly walk us through your Cambridge interview and the question you asked. And do you remember? Do you remember that telling us that story?
I remember. I think I remember.
Maybe just talk a little bit about the interview real quick, innit? Because I want people to hear about this, innit?
Yeah,
just
the interview,
your attitude going into the interview, and like what you were trying to achieve, and how it finished and how it ended, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Interview, so yeah, man. I was sitting in history, got an email that says, yeah, you've been invited to interview. I was like, miss, you give me, I'm a calm guy. Miss, can I go toilet? I'm in the toilet. I'm doing celebrations, bro. I'm saying, yeah, got an interview, cool. Quick message to my mom, quick message to my dad, bam, bam, got interview, cool. They're happy, I'm happy. I'm just waiting for the period to finish, bro. I'm saying, hurry up. I can't even listen anymore. Anyways, yeah. And so I've just prepared by generally going through my personal statement, reading through different things, like just making sure that I'm well-read, well-educated, and more time just trying to make sure that I'm speaking not like this, bruv. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, make sure that I'm pronouncing my words, and I'm sitting nice, getting my suits all prepared and whatever, cool. And so I'm trying to remember exactly the details that made you like that story, but I'm trying
the man's trying to recreate
exactly
how it was before.
No, I'm trying to remember the details that are making you, remember it, because, I mean, generally it's just like another Cambridge interview, but it was a bit funny because I think one of the interviews we had sort of a question about, one of the questions was about voyeurism. So it was asking if someone like, basically it was like, okay, yeah, It was basically like, okay, so a gay man walks up to a gay man pretends to be a police officer and walks up to another man accusing him of having drugs. And he says the only way he can get rid of this claim that he has drugs or this allegation is to go to the nearest police station and strip down naked, yeah? And the other guy responds, and he says something like, no, but I'll do it in the nearest public toilet. And then they go into the cubicle and they do it. And then the definition of voyeurism was something like, like the showing of some sort of like, some sort of body part in a public space. And generally the story, like, who would you blame in the story? Who's to blame? Who's the innocent party and who's the guilty party? Would you say? You tell me.
I mean, the person that's pretending to be a police officer is the guilty party,
because
right?
he's like sort of he's what's it called? He's making a fake allegation and stuff. Anyways, and then but I've shifted the blame onto the innocent party that we might think. I've said, to be honest with you, I also put some blame on the other man who sort of agreed to strip down naked in a public toilet, because if somebody told me that they were a police officer, I'd ask for some identity. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't put my hands up and take my clothes off. And then she started creasing, bro. It was like an old white lady, do you know what I'm saying? Like, she started creasing, bro. And I was just like, you know what? Like,
bro, you know what? That's so funny, yeah. But you know what I was referring to? How you asked the question at the end of the interview and you didn't care about the answer.
Oh, yeah. I was going to lead on to that. That's the other part. So that's that. First of all, that was like my first trick, innit? Trying to be charming, innit? Like, trying to be a bit funny and like cool. But generally, it went well. Like the interview, I feel like I was quite prepared. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't feel like it was absolutely impossible to prepare for, and I enjoyed it. I actually genuinely enjoyed it. But after the interview finished, for both interviews, I had researched all my interviewers because they tell you who it was before. So I had researched all of them. So one of them was my current CPE supervisor, so criminal procedure and evidence. So he's a very nice guy now, I know, obviously, and stuff. But at the time, I just saw, this guy writes a book about criminal law. I've researched the book, and I've literally read 2 sentences about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Just on Wikipedia. What's this book about? Cool. And I've come to the interview to ask him a question, bruv. I've asked the question. He's like, because at the end they ask you, do you have any questions for us? So I've said, yeah, just 2 questions, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Back, I've asked him the question. He's giving me some weird look, innit? Like, he's giving me like a, not a weird look, but like a very like shocked, but like impressed look. Do you know what I'm saying? So these times he's talking, bro. Like, he rambles on for about 5 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? He talks about for the book for like 5-6 minutes, bro. Me, these times I'm just waiting in it because I'm answering my questions. I'm just waiting, bro. I don't even care, bro. I'm just smiling like this. Yeah, I don't even care what he's saying, bro. Well, I could not even tell you. I can't remember the question. It was something about criminal law reform, innit? He wrote a book about criminal law reform, and I told him, why do you think this change needs to be done? Because each chapter is like a different reform that needs to be performed to the criminal justice system. And I said to him, okay, so why do you think this reform needs to be done? Why don't you look at it from this perspective? And he's giving me an answer, bro. I'm not even looking to respond, innit? I'm just saying, hurry up, innit? It was funny though, man. But why did that remind you of confidence? Because I said confidence, you lot smiled and asked for that story.
I guess confident people are they're just people that are willing to stand up for what's right usually, or that there's lots of positive connotations associated with being confident, right? And for me, I know if I was in your situation, it might be a risk. You know the joke you made at the beginning about I would ask for ID if someone said that they were a police officer. That's like a risky thing that would come up in my mind, but I don't know if I'd say it in that particular incident because of the situation.
People walking out the Cambridge law test, and I said something to these on my left. I was like, so which question did you answer? Something light, innit? Like, you get me? Because there was a few questions choices, 3 choices, I think, maybe. And so I must have asked, what question did you answer, whatever. It was 2 or 3 people, I think.
Keep your friends close, your enemies close.
Literally, bro. Literally, neither of them got in. But anyways, so we went to the coffee shop, had a little munch. I remember I was very intimidated by one of them. Very intimidated by not intimidated. That's the wrong word to use. Yeah, I remember, but his credentials and just the way he spoke and his description of himself, like generally how he introduced himself to me, was like, yeah, this is what people talk about, innit? Like, he was showing me, okay, he asked me, for example, off the bat, he's asked me, a bit of a mad question, and he's like, what's your GCSEs? So I'm saying, like, do you get it? We've just got to the coffee shop, man's got my orange juice, yeah, and my sandwich. I'm saying, bruv, like, you get it, calm down, innit? You're moving bare hot. Do you get it? Like, you're moving bare hot-headed, bruv. When I Cambridge interview asking me what my GCSEs are, straight off the bat.
Man's here, bruv, you know what I mean?
Just man's here, innit? Yeah, my man's wearing a suit too, innit? Don't worry. Do you know what I'm saying? So I've told him my GCSEs, innit? like calm GCSEs, innit? But like,
what did he respond? How did you respond?
he was like, you know what it is, bro? Like,
Did you-
like
nah.
people like that is like, nah, they'll never say anything bad about it. But it'll always be like, they're always trying to gas it up a little bit. Do you get it? Because because it's like the opposite effect. Because he doesn't want you to think that he thinks that your grades are terrible. He'll do the opposite. He'll make it seem that they're sick. So he must have been like, oh, nice, man, nice. I promise you, bro. And then I asked him what he got. Natural reaction, yeah. And he got 13 A stars. So at that point, it was just like, oh, yeah.
We were walking together and we were having a conversation about a particular topic regarding like our times at school, right? And I feel like let's flesh it out a little bit here so that maybe people who are listening can drop their comments drop their thoughts in the comments and maybe engage with this discussion, because I feel like we had quite a, not heated, but it was an intense conversation because we had a lot of opinions and a lot of So the question that we were discussing was about how to navigate secondary school in inner city London and how to do it in a way where you're not a victim, but at the same time you don't fall into violence. So like, Ali, what are your thoughts on that particular question? And is it possible to navigate inner city school without being a violent or a victim?
I'd say it's difficult. Like, to answer your question, I'd say it's difficult because obviously there's the condition that you're not a victim, innit? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, you can say, you know what, it's calm, innit? Don't worry about man. Yeah, sorry, innit? But, I'd say it's difficult. I'd say it's difficult, but it's difficult for a number of different reasons for different people. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially because it's generally, I'd say working class values have an influence on why it's difficult. I'd say the lack of value on education sometimes in certain areas can mean that role models are not people that are necessarily in education or pursuing professional careers. And so if your role models are not those kind of people, I'd say I don't know about different people, but I personally am influenced by role models. If I look at somebody and think, you know what, I like the way that they handle themselves, they like the way that they sort of think, then I'll sort of think about how I can sort of apply that to myself. Yeah, man, I think it's such a profound question that it'll be difficult for me to answer it straightforward, and I'd rather just hear your opinion. Like, what do you think?
What do you think, sir?
It depends on the question, to be honest. If the question is there a way to guarantee a guy, because we're talking, I think it's gendered in it really, and if we focus on a guy in inner city school London, to be able to navigate secondary school in a way that you're neither a victim nor have to resort to some form of violence, I would say it's impossible to guarantee that.
To guarantee it,
because there are instances where we can all think about a person like, yeah, but I know so and so, and they weren't either, and they were calm.
Yeah.
But I think that's not the same thing that we're like. The question is, which is to guarantee it, and I think it's impossible because to not be a victim, which is effectively not to back down from confrontation, right? Because all of this revolves around confrontation. You can't guarantee that would mean that you don't have to resort to some form of violence, whether that's like standing up for yourself in a fight or wherever that fight escalates or snowballs into. So yeah, for those reasons, I would say it's impossible to guarantee. Like, it's not a roadmap, because that was the way Suleiman initially phrased it. Like, is there a roadmap that you can give to a guy before he goes into like year 7 and goes, follow this, and you will be able to navigate?
You will never be a victim or like
and I don't think that exists because but at the same time, the reason why you said it's difficult, and I agree with you, is because all of us went to different schools, and we all have different, similar but different ideas and versions of all of the people and all of like these different external factors. And so when we're thinking about violence and how it manifests, we all have different anecdotes in our head, innit? Even though we're not explicitly saying them, they all kind of inform the responses that we give, which is why I think it's difficult, because someone can go, yeah, but this is like in Acton it was like this, and then it was in Brixton it was like this, and in Hackney it was like this. So everyone can kind of give a different
very different
version
dynamics
of
at play in each area, different.
Yeah, but in short, I would say it's impossible still. Like, I don't think that roadmap can exist.
I feel like you got to the heart of the question in the sense that you spoke about confrontation, right? Because that's what links both of them together. Are you going to back down from confrontation, or are you going to respond or retaliate to confrontation? So forgetting about a blueprint, but like potentially a way to address this problem or like contribute towards addressing, because let's be honest, it's never going to be gone forever, because violence is a part of human nature, always has been. can't really foresee it not ever being a part of human nature. But saying that, infrastructure, systems, people, environment, everything has a role to play in shaping whether confrontation is even going to spark in the first place. So I really like what you mentioned about people having enormous influence. I think about people like Donna. Even though I've only known her recently, I know how influential and how much of a positive influence she can be over people she's just met. I'm just someone that she's met for the first time, and she had an enormous influence over me. And I've seen like little videos on her social media about how she's made her lessons interactive and fun, how she's incorporated like music and like other forms of art into the lessons so that people are having a good time. Like there are things that people can do, and I guess systems and environments need to facilitate that. They need to create an environment that kind of encourages those types of creative pursuits.
I think from that perspective, I was reminded of that by sort of an experience that I had with my English teacher. I think it was like year 9 or year 10. And she saw that generally I was misbehaving in school. And one day after school, she was like to me, it was form time. She was my form tutor as well as my English teacher. So it was like a weird dynamic. So she knew me very well. And then so she was like to me, today after school, I want you to come back and then we're going to sit and we're going to talk. Do you know what I'm saying? And she didn't phrase it in the sense that it was going to be detention. She didn't phrase it in the sense that I was going to be punished or there's going to be any type of consequence. Like, and I went, and she didn't have to do this, of course. Like, she could have went home, innit? It was just me and her sitting in the classroom. We sat down for like 2 hours, hour and a half. And she just like tried to understand me as best as she could. Like everything. She tried to understand my home life, sort of where I'm getting money from, like who I was with every single day, the kind of things that I was doing. And it was almost like accountability, like, because she now knew, like, she knew what was on, innit? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, she knew that when I'm coming to school, she's asking me, like, what are you saying? Like, what's going on now? Do you know what I'm saying? Is my man still there? Do you know what I'm saying? Is this still going on? Is this problem still going on? So, generally speaking, it sort of like, that was very positive influence on me. Do you know what I'm saying?
What are you most afraid of looking forward into the future?
Most afraid of, I think you can be afraid of things in different aspects of life. I don't know about you guys, but I like personally break down my life, like religion, family, maybe career, just different aspects. And so I might have individual fears within each of them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, in friends, I have a fear of losing my friends that I currently have, who I think I've grown up with and I share certain experiences with. And that, for example, if they, like, drawing on what we've already spoken about, if they're from a certain background and they're going to be in ends, and I'm planning to be, for example, do certain things with my life, then how is that going to be reconciled? Like, how is that going to work? Is my life going to be too different for us to genuinely still be friends? Because I feel like being friends with someone involves having some common ground, and then if that common ground is lost, like, you get me, eventually that common ground is going to be no longer enough to sustain a friendship. Like, yeah, we went to school 20 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? But that's just within friends. One fear that I have that reconciles all of these different aspects of my life is generally that there's so many things I want to do. I'm a very ambitious person, and I just like, there's so many things to explore in life, and I feel like there's no time to do it, especially with where my life is headed right now. Like, if I'm a law student, I'm a second-year law student. If I do pursue a career in law, it's no secret that this is something that's going to take up a lot of your time. And generally speaking, that is a concern of mine, that I'm not going to have time to do the things I want, and I don't want to waste my whole life just working. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, working is great. It's a great opportunity to better yourself, to earn a lot of money, but at the same time, like, I don't live to work. There's a lot of things in my life that I want to do, like travel. There's so many different places that I want to travel. There's people that I want to visit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I have family all over the world. Like, I'd want to go and visit them and say, you know what? Like, I only live life once.
What you mentioned friends, what were the other things and what were the fears associated with them?
So, like, friends, religion, brother. Religion's just is I think inherently something full of fear, isn't it? I think in terms of just living your life a certain way, especially because I've been brought up and raised in London, a place where sort of inherently you'd say, like, there's a lot of opportunity for sin. That's my like sort of religion, and so that's my religious fear, I guess I'd say. And so, how is that going to change as I grow older? Because the question, you phrased it in the sense of in the future, and so if I was just to say that I'm scared of sinning, I mean, that's like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, that can be now, could have been before, but I feel like in the future, how is that going to change? If I'm working in a law firm and stuff, like maybe, for example, how's that going to change? Or if I'm earning a certain amount of money, like if I'm earning a lot of money, yeah, how is my sort of my lifestyle going to change, like in a way that might affect my religion? I'm quite confident that my beliefs will never change, but am I going to still be acting on those beliefs? That's the main concern.
Let's say tomorrow or today, you got a phone call
Yeah,
to go on BBC News, yeah,
yeah,
and just talk about your life for 20 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Number one, would you go? And number two, what would you wear and how would you speak?
Sick question.
To go on BBC to speak about my life. Nah, I probably wouldn't go.
On the back of that question, as you know,
But still,
going.
what would you wear
Keep
and how
going.
would you speak? What would you talk about and what would you wear and how would you speak?
But maybe because the question is not explaining exactly why I'm going to speak about my
They
life.
just
But
feel like, Ali, we rate your thing, bro. We see you're doing
No,
you're doing your thing. I
on
can't
the
lie
back
to
of
you. I'm
that,
trying to be like you.
It's Ali, we see you doing your thing, my brother.
Come chat to us.
We say 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Nah, 9 a.m. What are you telling me though? Listen, 9:30. Hey, mums, it'll be calm, G.
only a couple million people watching it. Not too much.
What would you wear?
I'd wear a suit, bro.
You'd wear a suit,
I'd
yeah?
wear a rude suit, man. What am I gonna wear, bro? A tracksuit. What am I gonna wear?
But you can wear whatever you want,
Yeah, I
yeah?
can, but I'm not gonna jump on the news, bro.
How would you
wearing a
talk?
Tracky and that. Me, I would not talk like this. I would not talk like this. I would be.
Why not?
Cause, bro, do you know what it is? It's not because of. It's because like people make inherent assumptions about these kind of things. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I feel like as well. I might not actually be right. I might actually not be right, but I feel like if people hear me speak in a certain type of way, then they're immediately going to associate me with certain characteristics and certain traits, and I don't want that. I don't want to fit into certain characteristics and traits. I know, like, do you know what I'm saying? I'd like to think that I'm somebody who is sort of who can thrive in a variety of different situations and sort of interact with people from a variety of different backgrounds. I think that's like part of my personality. It's never been very difficult for me. I remember I think my head of sixth form wrote that in my reference. I remember he let me read the reference, and he was talking about how my ability to speak to like people from a variety of different backgrounds. And I feel like generally, if I speak a certain type of way, people are going to assume things about me. Like generally, if you speak in slang, or you're not pronouncing your words properly and stuff, like for me, I speak to you guys like this because I'm comfortable with you guys, and I'm also aware that you're from a similar background to me. But in other situations, like my supervisors, for example, at university, I wouldn't speak to them like this. Because
You know what's so interesting about that particular scenario though is who is your audience? Your audience is Britain. We are part of Britain. There are so many different communities in Britain. So I guess it depends on who you're trying to speak to, right?
Suleiman, what part of your identity do you want to hold on to the most? What part of who you are, maybe as opposed to identity?
What part of who I am? For real, yeah. I think for me, it's just like I want to maintain humility. I want to maintain. I don't want to ever feel like I know things. Like I feel like because if you ever feel like you know everything or you know a lot, it's just based on my experiences. It's just very like it's just very limiting. You know what I mean? It's like, and there's no room for growth. There's no room for further learning. You kind of discourage other people from kind of, I don't know, you create false impressions as well. Do you know what I mean? You create false idols. There's just so many negative consequences of like not having humility. And it's also one of the most difficult things as well, because I find myself always wanting to offer an opinion, but sometimes, you know what I mean, more time. I should just keep quiet, but it's but yeah, that's something I want to maintain, to be honest. But you know what? I want to ask you, yeah, the question you asked Ali, because I feel like you thought about it maybe. Would you if you were invited to BBC One tomorrow, to talk about your life for 20 minutes.
Mm.
And let's say it was recorded, so it wasn't live. So there was room to edit.
Edit that out. Edit that out. Edit that out.
I'm more interested in what you would wear and how you would speak. But like, yeah, generally, would you take up the offer?
The reason I asked that question, is because I think it says a lot about the things that Ali speaks about, which is the way he is perceived.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, so you mentioned things like, you said a phrase which was,
so my answer
it doesn't help me, or something like that. It holds me back, or something. And for me, it made me think like, hold you back from what and to who, innit?
Oh, that's a very... Okay,
so that's why I thought BBC, because
it's going to be to a wide...
Yeah.
It depends on who's going to change your life, innit? Realistically, it depends on who you're relying on.
Interesting point.
You get what I'm saying?
So you're basically saying the people from the ends, they're not gonna bust me no more. I've rinsed it already.
Like, do you get it? Like, I'm not even saying it in a rude way, but like, who's gonna? Do you know what I'm saying? And people in ends is like, in what way you're gonna benefit me? Do you know what I'm saying? Especially like,
isn't that a bit harsh?
Not in what way you're going to benefit me, but we have to look at it in a very specific context, which is that, let's say I want to be a lawyer. So in that context, like, how are people from ends gonna benefit me, bro? Do you know what I'm saying? In that context, like,
don't we all go through legal issues? You know what I mean? Like, isn't everyone kind of intimately tied to the law? I guess maybe the type of law you're interested in, maybe.
Very practical terms, literally like writing my application, getting the experience that I need to put on that application, that kind of thing is gonna be gifted to me by people who are not going to appreciate me speaking slang or me speaking. And do you know what I'm saying? That's my opinion. Now, I'm very ready for life to teach me that I'm wrong. This is why I think the whole topic of like ethnic minorities and like generally people from underprivileged backgrounds pursuing professional careers and going to university and stuff is such an interesting topic, because you're battling with all of these different things. Do you know, don't you think? Like, like sort of
the social and the cultural capital, all of
literally
that stuff,
like this is what you're battling with on a daily basis, and sort of it's really your choice. I've seen people not necessarily care about maybe the way they speak and the way like they perceive themselves. They just say, you know, if I work hard and if I put in the necessary work to get the qualifications, to get the necessary experience, then I'll get wherever I need to be. Because there's so many things you want to do in life, but when am I going to find the time to do it? I think that's the main stress that I have in life. Like, cool, bro, you can earn money, you can be a solicitor, you can do that, but in my lifetime, I want to spend time with my mum, I want to spend time with my dad, I want to go on holiday with my family, I want to have kids, I want to be sick at my job, I want to be a mad lawyer, I want to earn money, I want to do this. Like, bro, where's the time going to come for that when law firms are shouting you 14 holiday days a year? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for real, that's like my main concern. That's my main concern. I've slept over at my friend's house, a primary school friend, yeah. And then it turns out the next day that him and his family are going to the museum. And so this guy, what he's done, is he's worn his metal studs to the museum, bro. So I'm walking around, bro, and I'm like, it's the British Museum, innit? Because I'm Iraqi, right? So there's obviously like the Mesopotamia thing. And so we're going there to read that, getting gas saying, Iraq was the first place in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the motive, innit?
History.
That's the motive, literally, like we're claiming it as ours, innit? Like this time she's saying, that's me, you know?
Like, well done, Ali, innit? That's
literally, bro, but my man's walked in with metal studs, bro. Voila, the whole time, the museum, he's walking around with metal studs. Like, he's genuinely walking around with metal studs. School is not as bad, innit? Because you might kick ball, you're sitting down. This guy's walking around the museum with metal studs.
He's supposed to be very quiet as well, bro. Oh,
bro. Because more time we've gone in a minivan, innit? Like, we've driven. So until then, I'm thinking, it's arty, it's calm, it should be okay. We've gotten to the museum, bro. I'm hearing this guy walking around like he's got high heels on, bro.
That's funny. I don't even know how he got through the metal detector. That's mad.
Clop, clop, clop.
Literally, and they were big for him. So